Well, good afternoon, everybody. Time for our formal program to begin. So thankful for your attendance today at our Distinguished Speaker Series for this fall of 2015. My name is Rick Lytle, and I serve as the Dean of the College of Business Administration, and just so happy to welcome you today. Great food, great surroundings, great environment. As I look out over the table, I just want to brag on one of our staff. We have a relatively new staff member who has built from scratch your table decorations, those flowers and the wheat. Where's Corinne? Corinne, give it up. You got to give it up for Corinne Woodruff Coulter here. She did a great job. Just proud of her work and thankful to our staff for what they do. What we're going to do today, I'm going to be a part just on the front end, and then Lisa Rose, our distinguished speaker, will come up in a minute and be with us. But as we begin, we always want to pause and give thanks to God for the day and for the food. And our prayer today will be led by Matt Willoughby. He's a management and biology major from Salina, Texas. And Matt, would you come up and lead us in prayer?
Will you pray with me? Dear Lord, you are mighty and powerful and glorious, and we are humbled and grateful to be allowed to come before your throne in prayer. We thank you for the day that you have blessed us with. We thank you for this wonderful meal that we have been blessed to share together. Please bless this food to our bodies and our bodies to your service. Thank you for the men and women who have prepared it, and may you bless them. Thank you for placing us in this place, in this time, for your reasons, and help us to see those reasons and fulfill them as you desire. Place your hand and your blessings over the Gatehouse and the Project HandUp. Bless these ministries and help them to spread and grow and bring your love and peace to those who need it. Be with Lisa as she comes and speaks to us, and help us to hear your words through her. Lord, we have in our thoughts today those affected by Hurricane Patricia and the struggles that the Central American countries affected by this disaster are going through. And we ask that you would make your presence known in the lives of those affected. Thank you for the countless blessings that you shower upon us. But thank you most of all for your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Matt. I want to make a couple of introductions and thank yous. First of all, I want to thank PFS Web and First Financial Bank here in Abilene for sponsoring our program today. The CEO of PFS Web, Mike Willoughby, is down here. Mike, can you raise your hand? Thank you, Mike, for your support. And where are First Financial folks? They're at the bank. Okay, but we're glad they sent the check, probably by remote deposit into our account, so we're thankful for them. They've always been great sponsors of what we do. Also wanted to bring your attention to the fact that Pat Gelsinger is going to be our Spring 2016 Distinguished Speaker. Pat Gelsinger is President and CEO of VMware, which I understand is the number 3 technology company in the U.S. behind Intel and Microsoft. In fact, Pat spent 30 years at Intel and told me a couple of months ago that the chips that are coming out today in your computers, he worked on and has worked on every chip actually that Intel's ever produced. So we're just really blessed to have Pat come and be our speaker in the spring. Also want to explain for questions after Lisa is finished presenting, this text number is my cell phone number, and you can ask questions from where you're at, or you can text me questions, and I'd be happy to get those to Lisa at the end of her speech. And also I want to just pay special attention or make special notice of some folks who serve us really well in our community. We invited folks from the Noah Project, Global Samaritan, and FaithWorks to be with us today because of the nonprofit nature of Lisa's work and the speech. Are you guys in the audience? Can you stand up if you're from Noah Project, Global Samaritan, and FaithWorks? Would you guys just stand up so we can thank you for your great service? Thank you. And we are so grateful for the hard work that you do and the good work that you do. And then finally, we like to have our students participate as much as possible, so I'm not going to make a formal introduction of Lisa, but one of our students, Caitlin Renner, junior accounting major from Tuscola, Texas, will come to the podium and introduce Mrs. Rose, and then Lisa will speak, and then we'll do some Q&A after that. So Caitlin, would you come?
As founder and president of Project HandUp, Lisa's mission is to provide venues where people can find their purpose and learn to fulfill it. After growing up in Fort Worth, Texas, and receiving a marketing degree from Texas Tech University, her time in corporate life was in fast food marketing. She has spent the last 20 years in church women's ministry, leading and equipping women through classes, studies, and events. She has served on Grace's Advisory Council and at the Dallas County Jail. She currently serves as board member for the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute, Performing Arts Fort Worth, United Way Homelessness Allocations Committee, and was the 2015 Golden Deeds Outstanding Citizen of the Year. She founded First Friday, an event for women, in 2008, and is now committed to the lifelong project of establishing the Gatehouse as a community where women and children in crisis participate in a place and program for permanent change. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Rose.
Good afternoon. I've loved my morning at ACU. It has been, I've loved looking at the campus, and I told Dr. Lionel, I feel such a peace here, do you? And it's really neat on a campus to feel God's presence. And so it's been, I truly mean that, just the most gracious staff, the gracious people. And then, right before lunch, I met 3 people from Colleyville that go to my church at home, and she's looking at ACU today, and she volunteers at the Gatehouse, and I did not know it. So isn't that neat? They're right here at the first table, so it's nice to meet you. But I truly do appreciate the opportunity to share about the Gatehouse today, but really it's a bigger story, and it's about his story that proves that God has placed every one of us here at this time, in this generation, with our talents and resources for a specific purpose. And it really is possible to discover it. So as you listen, you'll be hearing about how the Lord put together people and circumstances and the resources for First Friday and now the Gatehouse. But think about it in context of your life. And I hope that you'll take away some proven ways and practical tools that you can use as a foundation to really start listening to God or continue to listen to Him and discover what His next step is for you. But I wanted to tell you about a woman and a son and their donkey. They were walking along the path with their donkey, and they ran into a friend who said, "Girl, get on the donkey. You're supposed to ride it, not walk alongside it." So the woman got on the donkey. In a bit, they met their professor, who said, "Look at that selfish woman making her son walk." So the woman got off the donkey, put her son on the donkey. Later down the path, they came across some of their family members who said, "Look at that selfish little boy riding that donkey, making his mom walk." So they both got on the donkey. Further on, they passed some people from their church who said, "Look at the woman and little boy overloading that donkey." The woman and son looked at each other, got off the donkey. The next person saw the woman and the son carrying the donkey. The point is, when we live our life listening to everybody's voice, we don't get the ride right for ourselves, because we're either living someone else's purpose for us or we're living our own. So I know you've heard the good news. God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. But I'd like to say my friends love me and have a wonderful plan for my life. And there are a lot of voices that we can hear and that we can listen to. But who we listen to really matters. And I want to start off with that today, because you can apply this to your life as well as what's happened with the Gatehouse. So the first part of my story that Dr. Lyle asked me to tell is how I chose which voices to listen to. 30 years ago, we lived in Richardson, Texas. I loved my job, had 2 babies, job in fast food, first house, good friends, and had never moved from the Metroplex except to go to college. And we were doing fine. We were on a fine path. We set our goals every year. We were looking for a church, weren't really involved in church, and weren't that intentional about how we spent our time, our energy, or our money. And then God literally plucked us up from where we love to be and sent us to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And even though I do like adventure and I like change, so that was the positive. I was really devastated. We left our friends, we moved in a blizzard. I had a newborn baby and a 20-month-old daughter. And so my husband thought, and I was kind of falling apart, but my husband thought, we've got to do something and do it fast. Let's try church. So we went to the phone book, I'm not kidding, and we chose a Boyd church, the first one in the phone book. And it worked out very well. We made great friends. Really, they were biblically based, and it was a good experience. Now, I grew up churched, extremely involved, and was there every time the doors opened. But there was a small element missing from that. Had not met the Lord and had not met God and didn't really realize who he was or anything about his character. So 2 ladies at that church who were really became great friends, recognized this, and they took me on. I was their project, and for 1 year they invited me to a Bible study, and I never would go. After a year, I just showed up at Bible Study Fellowship just to get them off my back. I'm not kidding. Tom Landry, one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, said in order for men to be who they want to be, we must make them do what they don't want to do. And this group had no problems telling you what to do to get your lesson done. To me, this was just a class. I was going to appease Kathy and Lynn, and I would fit it in between exercise and work and crafts and everything else I was doing. But they taught me 2 things, 2 simple lessons, and this is great for even the kids here. Have a plan. And so they said, have a plan to get those lessons done. Leonard Ravenhill said, without a plan, good intentions fail. And so I bought a Bible for the Bible study and would have every day my papers, the study, the Bible, everything I needed in one place. So it was easy to sit down and get it done. But honestly, that seems simple, but so many don't have a plan. And having a plan to discover your path and purpose and fulfill it is truly the most vital activity in which we can engage. The second lesson that I learned at that time was to be persistent and do that lesson daily until the time spent on the lessons became a habit. So God didn't say, listen to me when the kids go to school, or listen to me when you retire, or when you graduate, or even when you feel like it. In fact, Corrie ten Boom said, don't wait till you feel like it. Make an appointment with God and keep it. So at that time, I was reminded to make appointments with the Lord every day. And I was reminded that I make an appointment for an hour for lunch with friends. I make an appointment to go to exercise for an hour. Today we're having lunch for an hour and a half. What about an hour with God? And so I think we'll stand before the Lord one day and say, we'll hear either well done or well. From doing what I didn't want to do, God was allowing me to become, and he was changing me into who he really meant for me to be. So I began to read this Bible above other books. I found that his words every day was just what I was looking for. And I read it not as a spectator any longer, but as if God were talking just to me, and his voice began to drown out the other voices that I used to depend on for advice or comfort. I didn't have to do Bible study anymore. I wanted to do Bible study, and I began to hear him speak. And I wasn't really aware of it, but time with his word was becoming the foundation for which everything else would flow, including First Friday in the Gatehouse. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already given time to him daily, don't let weird people keep you from it. Don't let busyness keep you from it. Just imagine you're on a mountaintop. It's you and him. He's given you his letter. And then you say, Lord, what do you have for me today? And listen. Because you will really hear, he really speaks and you'll really hear him. And then it's possible to move and start moving from insecurity to being secure, from no faith to having faith, from unhappiness to happiness, and from no purpose to discovering your purpose. And I learned that by doing what I didn't want to do, I really could become who he created me to really be. So the challenge is to decide who you're going to listen to, then have a plan and persist in doing it. A neighbor asked me what would have happened if you hadn't gone to Indiana. And I said, 2 things stand out most of all. That every day God stands at the door and knocks, and it's my choice to open it. And that he loves me so much that if I just show up and listen, he will lead. So the principle is God has the plan, and we can discover it. So the theme of that part of my life really was listen. When my husband and I both began Bible study in Indiana, guess what? We got to move back home. It was like God did this again, plucked us up, and now you're back in Fort Worth. And we joined a church right away because this time we fed on that. And I loved serving in women's ministries. But there were some game changers during those years in women's ministry from other people. And this time I was listening to others, not like the donkey people, but people who gave directives or questions who were very thoughtful. And I could see how God was moving me on to the next step through these directives or questions. The first one was a directive. And I know we don't like to be told what to do, but this woman said, "We will pray out loud, and I want to hear everyone's voice." This was in the same Bible study I was in Fort Wayne, but now I was a leader in Fort Worth. Not because I was good, but because I really know that they choose the ones who need the most help, and then they put them in leadership. And you may know her. Some of you may know them. It was Donna Wilbanks. And so we were in a group of 70 people, and she said, "We're going to pray, and I want to hear everyone's voice." And I thought that I would throw up. I'm sorry you're eating, but you do what you don't want to do, and you're not going to throw up. By doing that, what I didn't want to do, I learned new things about prayer. Mainly that it's not about just getting what you want and giving God a laundry list. It's truly about a relationship. And that prayer is nothing more than a continual conversation with the living, loving God all day long. So as we think about how we communicate with people, we talk and we listen. Prayer's the same thing. It's just with God, it's called prayer. And I love how Chuck Swindoll illustrates that in Genesis 17. Here's what Chuck says. And it's from Abraham. "We see God talking. Abe fell face down. Then God talked and laid out his vision and what God would do. He gave Abraham what Abraham would do. Abe talked back. God quit talking. Abe did what he was supposed to do." Great relationship. Ole Halsby said, "No prayer, no power. Much prayer, much power." So it's a learned activity, but I was learning to sit and listen. So not only to read the Bible, his letter to me, but to hear him talk. And not just as I talked, then turn on the television or the news or run away, but to sit and talk to him and then sit there long enough to give him a chance to respond. So this time with God became the center of my power and productivity. And that was through a directive of someone making me pray. The second game changer was a challenge through Henry Blackaby. And I know many of you have heard his principle. Find out where God is working and join him. So I think we get in big trouble when we tell people, "Oh, you can do anything you want to do." Because really, I love Gladys Knight, but I'm not going to be a singer and dancer. But I know I can do everything God has called me to do. And I was learning there's a difference between coming up with a vision and asking him to bless it versus asking God what his vision is and joining him. So the challenge for all of us today is ask God where he's working and join him. So it's a daily thing. "Lord, what are you doing today? And what do you want me to do?" It's that simple. The third game changer, he spoke through Debbie Stewart, and it was a question. Debbie was women's minister at Prestonwood Baptist Church, and she said at one of our Christmas gatherings, "What has God gifted you with that you need to re-gift to others?" So I went home and made a list, and you can do that later today. So you can list things like joy, salvation message. For me, ability to provide venues where people can find their purpose and connect with God, ability to facilitate Bible studies. And so I'm just writing. You'll have other things. It may be art, it may be finance, money, the good news of Christ, but we all have things we could put on that list. The same week, and that was in December, that I heard that question, I also believe God was telling me it was now time to resign from women's ministry at church, which I had done like 20 years. And he led me up to it through the year. I knew in my heart it would happen. I just didn't know when, and I felt that, and now it's time. Your season's over. But I had no idea what would come next. Yet, from the years spent listening to him and learning about his character, I knew he would handle it, and he had me. And I knew he was trustworthy. And so I told our pastor, Eric Robinson, it's time to go. I'm done. If I don't leave now, I'll be very disobedient. So the theme was expanding, and now it wasn't just listening, it was yielding to what he was telling me to do, or what I believed he was telling me to do. And as I opened my hand and gave up what I loved, God put something better in it. So as soon as I obeyed, and we all listen to him differently. I like to early in the morning, I like to sit with the Lord. And I heard from him, take women's ministry to the community. How? Have a neighborhood Bible study, and have a speaker once a month at Harkins Theater. I mean, it was one sentence that I heard, and I know it was clear. So that fleshed out. Even before that, I started sharing it with friends, and one by one, they would say, I'm supposed to be on that team. I think I'm supposed to do that. And they weren't all people who knew each other. They were friends from different groups. Today, they're all best friends, and they love each other dearly. But then it was a new group. So we met in February of 2007 with what we thought we were supposed to do. And it fleshed out as being a once-a-month experience where we rented Harkins Theater in our shopping center on the first Friday of every month, September through May, and we would bring in a Christian speaker or author from everywhere in the country. And so we've had lots of names over the years, people you know. And they would share practical resources and proven ways that women could navigate life and live to their God-given potential. We started with filling one theater with 125 women that very first Friday in September of 2008. We turned away 69 people, and everyone looked and said, well, maybe we heard him. And then so we kept going, and now we have over 400 women that attend from all over the Metroplex every first Friday. It was interesting because as I was sharing that vision, so I knew I'd heard. And when you get a direction from God, everybody won't be excited for you. And so you'll hear other voices, well-meaning people who said this won't work. And they had legitimate reasons. There are no small groups, so no relationship, there's no food, it's not at a church, it's not Bible study, the location's wrong. And one even said, it was a person who helps nonprofits start their nonprofit. He said, who are you? And so you're speechless. And I wish I'd read Bob Goff's book called Love Does at that point. Bob says, who made up the idea you have to be somebody important to be a part of what God wants to do in the world? It doesn't matter who you are if you're the one being asked. So the next time God asks you to do something and it's above your pay grade, or it requires courage or risk, just say yes. The truth is, you can do everything God calls you to do. And by the way, and I did tell you we're on our 8th year of First Friday, which eventually led to the Gatehouse. So as a team, in the last few years, we've done a couple of things. And you can do that yourself, you can do it with your groups, you can do it in your neighborhood. But they were really important because we see how it led from First Friday and now to a bigger plan. One was a visioning exercise where we imagined if we were around in 10 years, if God wanted this to continue on, what would we want to be? And every member of the team said, we really want to be more than a 1-hour event. We would like to be a resource center where women and their kids could receive not only spiritual and emotional resources, but also material help, financial help, whatever they need so barriers are broken down and they can become self-supportive. That would require a building, and we would never want to do that. So we tabled it, and I still have all those sheets in my drawer in my home office because we didn't talk about it anymore. We thought it was impossible. So if the Abilene Reporter highlighted you in 10 years, what would you want them to say? Isn't that a question to ask? So at the same time, I also heard Laurie Beth Jones, who wrote The Path. And what The Path is walking you through writing your mission statement. And a mission statement is just a written down reason for being, whether it's for you or for your company or for your volunteer work or for a project. It's a template that really initiates and evaluates and refines all of your activity. The clarity of having a mission statement does several things. and it's changed our life and our team's life. It makes decision-making easier, so you're not running in 100 directions, and your focus is narrowed on what you're really supposed to be doing. It relieves us of the stress of attempting to fulfill others' expectations, because we're not meant to do everything that everybody wants us to do. Even Jesus didn't. He didn't heal everybody. He didn't stay in every town as long as they wanted him to. He just knew why he was here, and he did it. Another thing a mission statement does or supplies for you is it redefines your definition of success. So at the end of the day, we can ask, did I do what I believe you told me to do? Then I'm successful. So I've learned through all this, the outcome for me, the outcome is not my responsibility. God's responsibility is the fruit. My responsibility is to do what he tells me to do, and then I'm successful. Last, the mission statement really helps dispel our fear of failure. Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Can you believe it? Colonel Sanders' chicken was rejected 1,009 times before a restaurant accepted it. If you happen to fail, so what? And it was a huge lesson for me. I don't have to be perfect. And if I'm afraid, just do it afraid. And if you're wrong, God is good. He will recorrect and put you back on the right path. So having that mission statement really was the single most important positioning tool in First Friday's life and in our individual's life, and it can be in yours and your company's too. So listening, yielding, led to growing and getting outside my bubble. And I'm speaking for me, but the whole team has a story of their part in how God put together the Gatehouse. But since I'm here, you get mine. But outside of my bubble meant outside church walls, and still attending and loving church, but leading neighborhood Bible study groups, being an emergency assistance caseworker at a local nonprofit, volunteering in the Dallas jail, which I loved, and leading Bible study there every week. And also began reading some different kinds of books. So now books on poverty and happiness and how to give people a real hand up without charity. And I was witnessing in these places I would volunteer, so in our community as well as what was going on as well as what I was reading, that there was more than financial poverty, which I always just thought of financial poverty, but there's a real poverty of spirit, a poverty of relationships, of resources. And we were seeing people who need a real hand up in 3 different areas. One was after domestic violence, because it's so hard to leave. And on an average, a woman goes back 17 times before she's ready to go and finds a place where she can permanently become self-supportive. When those in jail, and for those underemployed or unemployed, and they go back year after year for the hand out, but there was no program or nothing to offer them to give them a hand up to get out of that and become self-supportive. So after 3 years of First Fridays and volunteering in the community, really felt God leading to form our own nonprofit. And so we named this Project HandUp to give women a hand up with life's challenges. And it wasn't very specific on purpose because we didn't know what it was leading to. We just knew something was coming after First Friday and still didn't know what it was. But in one program where I volunteered, Deborah Lyons, the executive director, had a dream, and I didn't know it, to have a program, and she's the master's in psychology. She created the program where she was working, but she wanted it to be faith-based and privately funded with no government money. A mutual volunteer told us about her dream, and Kim also told Deborah about us. She told Deborah First Friday has a dream for a resource center for women, but would never want to build anything. That our family through Isaiah 58 wanted to feed people and knew it was more than First Friday. That we wanted to make an investment in our community where we could see it work. And so you have all these 3 things going. And finally, and I told Kim, I'm not calling Deborah, she wants money. So she can call us if she wants money. Deborah said, I don't want to call Lisa because if God really wants it, we'll meet in the grocery store and hug and everything will be okay. You know, when you pray, you also have to do something. So one Christmas, Deborah wrote it down. She wrote her plan, and she called us, and she and her husband met my husband and I, and her dream was for an apartment for 24 women, a chapel, and an office, and to renovate an old apartment building. And we said, no, let's just build it new. So we found 6 acres really close to us in Grapevine, and we were going to close that week. And Matt and I were in the car going to the airport, and that morning I'd had my quiet time, just like I had for 20 years now, and said, we're not supposed to do this. And my heart was just like, how am I going to tell Deborah? And people have worked on this, and we're in it, but it's wrong. And I said, Matt, this is wrong, and that's all I said. He gets on the phone, and he calls his partner, and he said, John, she needs more land. Maybe a place to have a resource center for women, maybe a place to have First Friday, maybe 15, 18 acres. I had never mentioned to him the First Friday's dream of a resource center. I didn't even know what was happening. I just sat there with goosebumps thinking, oh my, I really just meant I didn't want to do this at all. And so John, the real estate partner, went out, and he didn't find 18 acres, he found 61. And on August 21st, 2012, at 11:06 p.m., the Grapevine City Council made a unanimous yes vote. They've never had a unanimous yes in all of their history to allow the Gatehouse to restructure this property and the 61 acres that they could have been taxed on to nonprofit status, 501c3, and the Gatehouse was approved. And I told the kids this morning, the whole chamber stood up and yelled, and they were so excited, and everybody was cheering, and I just sat in my seat and thought, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Our life is changing. This is really happening. And but we prayed the whole time, the whole year that we've been preparing, that God would close the door if it wasn't him, because it's too big, it's too hard, and it's cost too much money to do if it were not him. And every day I prayed, Lord, just shut the door if this is not you. But if it is you, just fling it wide open. And he did. He flung the door wide open. And so this would be a great time probably to watch the video if she's there. And you can see what the Gatehouse is, and then I can just talk a minute about that.
I felt like I had nowhere to go. I felt very alone.
The humiliation, maybe I deserved everything that was going on. You feel trapped.
I just thought to myself, not make it through this night. First, it was mild, a push here and a shove there. And the more I stood up and spoke up and said, you will not treat me this way, the more violence entered into the relationship.
I was alone in a home, always scared of when he was going to come home. I was too scared to tell anybody, and really at that point felt like maybe I deserved everything that was going on and that he had done to me.
I remember he hit my arm and it just swelled up, and there was blood everywhere. And he had deadbolts on the apartment that locked from the inside. He had the keys in his pocket, so I couldn't get out. I was stuck inside the house with the baby and with him, and he was passed out. And I got myself to the bathroom. I remember throwing up, because I'm sure I had a concussion. Just pulled myself together, and that was pretty much when I told myself that was going to be it. It wasn't going to change ever, and I didn't want my son to be around that.
Being in transitional housing really is what changed my life for me.
The transitional housing gave me the tools to help myself, and that's all a lot of people want. A lot of people want to help themselves. They just need the tools to do that.
Ultimately, that's what I needed, was just a place that would let me come and just rest, fall apart for a little while, heal, and to find the truth about who you are, and the truth that what was going on was wrong.
When a woman leaves an abuser or some type of crisis situation, she'll arrive at the Gatehouse with nothing.
We provide housing,
Food, clothes,
transportation, childcare,
medical and dental care,
help with further education. Education to us is key.
professional counseling,
The Gatehouse is committed to knocking down those barriers for our women.
so they can begin to build totally new lives for themselves and their children.
This is a need that has existed in this area for a long time. People tend to look at domestic violence as an inner city problem, and the fact is it's a suburban problem as well. It's an American problem.
The Independent Life Program is designed to bring women and children through the healing process, while at the same time providing the resources and relationships necessary for them to build new lives.
We focus on the children as much as the women because our vision is to see cycles of abuse and poverty ended.
The Gatehouse is not a shelter. The Gatehouse is a supportive living community. We offer a hand up to women and children who will be coming to us from shelters or short-term transitional housing programs.
The Gatehouse campus includes the Washington Community Education Center, where events and classes are held and rented to the community for meetings and events, the Hope Chapel, 4 neighborhoods to house 96 families, 2 counseling centers, the general store for food and household supplies, and Keeps Boutique. Walking trails, a sport court, playground, and commercial strip center are also included on the property.
We're that final step just prior to self-supportedness.
A good program will allow a woman to heal, not just expect her to get a job immediately.
We'll know we're making a lasting difference when over 200 people a year have become healed, happy, and healthy, productive citizens of our community.
Going through that program, I was able to get my emotions on track, go to counseling, get my head right so that I could figure out where my focus in life needed to be and rebuild myself.
The transitional housing, it's not that I might not have made it out, I would not have made it out. If someone will just help me, I want to help myself. I want to do this by myself, but I just need someone to help me a little bit.
The Gatehouse is already growing beyond our expectations, and we look forward to a positive impact being made on every single person who has an experience here. The members, staff, volunteers, and supporters of the Gatehouse.
It's really a wonderful place, and we can say that not because we're wonderful, but because God put us in the right place at the right time with the right resources and relationships and people to make it work. And this video was our original video, and it talked about phase 1. The campaign went so well, we've now built all the phases. All 4 neighborhoods are open and ready to go. No debt. It really is all him. We worked at it, of course, but he's the one that laid it out and put it together. We have 26 families right now. That's 26 women and about 40 children. And so by the end of 2016, we'll be full with 96 families. And so it is a big deal. We do food, clothes, cars, counseling, education. We're huge on education, workforce development, life skills training, medical, dental. Imagine what it takes your family to thrive, and then multiply it by 96. And then add professional counseling on it, which we all need anyway. But add counseling, add a car, add life skills training on top of that, and you can imagine what this takes. But it's why we need about 1,000 volunteers a year, and we've trained 800 already. 300 are on the waiting list. It's why we need the corporations, the foundations, individuals, and people to support, because it's really not about us. We're just setting it up to last way beyond us, way beyond our lifetime. And we hope it's here 150 years and will help thousands and thousands of people become self-supportive and meet Christ in the process. So the whole theme for this, really, for the Gatehouse and how it happened was listening. You will not be perfect. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. But we have worked harder. And when you listen, you will work harder, pray harder,
love more, enjoy life, and have more fun than we've ever had because you're living the plan God has for you. And every one of us can do it. We believe we are living the plan God has for us. And that's not over. Tomorrow's a new day, and He may have something else. But we show up, and as we show up and listen, He gives the next step, and He will for every one of us in this room. So thanks for listening, and go God, right? And go ACU.
Is that okay?
So that was awesome. Lisa's agreed to take some questions, so we're going to, I think, move over here. And I'll start us off with one, and I think the text number is back up here. So maybe one question would be, right now, what are some of the biggest challenges that are facing you? We've got all the success and all this going on, but there's got to be some challenges. What can you share some of those?
Our biggest challenge, like Gatehouse challenge, not personal,
Right.
so is childcare. Because one of the largest barriers that women face that keep them from becoming self-supportive and keep them on government funding is childcare. At $10,000 a child for daycare, you can imagine what these women are facing. And so we're talking to Salvation Army, we're talking to individuals, and we're talking to one large church because they recognize they recognize the need for childcare in our community, and I'll bet it's in this community too. It's just quality childcare, and we want quality Christian childcare. Is the largest barrier that keeps women away from being self-supportive. That's huge.
So the first question coming in from one of our students, has Gatehouse considered partnering with police force to help put an end to domestic violence by prosecuting the perpetrators?
So in Dallas, Jennifer Staubach Gates is chairman of the DV task force, so domestic violence DV. And Dallas has done a great job on partnering already. So we really are under the umbrella of everybody else and what's already been done. We love our Grapevine police, and they spend a lot of time at the Gatehouse. I mean, they'll even park cars there when they have extra cars. So, but we haven't taken on the bigger picture yet because we're so new. We're just joining in what people are already doing, and it's really going well in Dallas. They're really working on it. Police are on it. Mayor's on it. Texas governor is on it. So it's a good thing already. Yeah.
Okay. And how does a woman get to participate? So there's lots of these folks that are struggling out there. How does somebody get into the Gatehouse?
A lot of avenues, and most people are finding us on the web, and they've been calling since we had a website and nothing but dirt, and that's sad. So they're come from shelters, from other social service agencies, from hospitals, and from individuals. So you might call and you know someone, and what they do is they go online and they fill out an application. And then they receive a phone call and do a phone interview, then a long application, and then a personal interview. And what we're looking for are people who are ready to never go back to poverty, homelessness, or domestic violence. So we're looking for the woman who is ready to work a program for permanent change. And so we're not a shelter. What we do is fill the gap between short-term services and long-term self-supportiveness. That's how we're different. We're a supportive living community, not a shelter.
So is it restricted to the DFW area, to the state of Texas? What?
No, we serve all the Metroplex, all of Northeast Texas, and we have our first woman from out of state, from Florida. So there'll be shelters who have people who need to leave the state, and then we're accessible for that.
So you mentioned a little bit about her in class today. I don't know if, I just think some of us just aren't in that realm, and it just was fascinating with what happened with her. I mean, would you share with
Sure.
you? Yeah. Okay.
This woman did everything right, and so she worked with the shelter in Florida. They worked with us, and this isn't me. So this is Deborah and her team, but yet we're all a team, and we all know what's going on. To escape the abuser, she needed to leave the state, obviously. Set it up with the airlines. She came without her, anonymously, without even her name. But she'd been to a counselor here whose pastor knew the abuser. Now, abusers are sociopaths, and they are manipulators, and they look like us. And they are your greatest, you think they're the greatest church member and greatest person at work, good guys. That's what they look like. And this pastor just couldn't believe that his friend
childhood friend could do this. And so they told him where she was. So we had a visitor from Florida. Yeah. But he's back in Florida. The police were there. We hired off-duty police officers, and it was 11:30 Sunday morning when he showed up. And they had 5 cars there immediately. We had a pro bono lawyer get a protective order by Monday morning, and the guy is in Florida. So, but that's just one story out of, that's when we had 20 families. We'll have 96.
So another question, comment says, wonderful resources and facilities, clearly blessed by God. There's no diversity in the video, only Caucasian women. Does the program and outreach include other cultures and
Every
races?
culture. In fact, one was Hispanic.
Okay.
That we had Hispanic. But so, yeah, in fact, our mix right now is a mixture of more Caucasian than half Caucasian, half African American, and then we have Hispanic in there. So it's not half and half exactly, but Hispanic in there. Doesn't matter. Culture doesn't matter. Socioeconomic status doesn't matter. Where you are in life doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I'm thinking back to class again. So you told us how much it cost to provide for a family or a woman there versus what it would cost the taxpayer. And then I loved your thought about why you guys made the decision to be self-funded with no government assistance. That's a 2-part question. Tell us how much it costs.
Yeah, so we wanted to be privately funded. Number one, because we really want to practice our faith. So you can't make anybody want the Lord or love God, just like we don't make our kids or make our spouse. But we want to be able to really freely pray and live it and love on these people in the way that we know that will bring permanent change from their heart. But also, the goal is permanent self-supportiveness for these women. No government funding when they leave. And great job. So when they're in the program, they're working and going to school or working or going to school. They're busy. And then mandatory life skills training on Tuesday and Thursday night, and mandatory support groups and professional counseling. But the goal is off the government funding. And so if for taxpayers in Dallas County, it's $55,000 a year per person to take care of someone who is home. If they accept all the government benefits they can, it costs the taxpayer $55,000. At the Gatehouse, it's costing us $35,000. So far to take care of them for a year. But then, see, they start to pay in. So when they get a job and then they get a better job, they're starting to pay to be there. So we're still not giving the handout. If you take government money and you do that all your life, it's a job in itself to go get it. And then you lose all your dignity. There are lots of reasons, but we're made to have dignity. And you don't have dignity if you're taking a handout all your life and accepting money from someone else. You're not working, you're not doing or being who God created you to be, because we're created for work and to love it.
So a little bit of a shift in this question. You're married to Matt Rose, who's executive chairman of BNSF, the largest railroad company on the universe. You have 2 children. You have a marriage. You're married to Matt. You do a lot of stuff. Question is, how do you maintain work-life balance? How do you? I know everybody hates that question, but we're all
There's no
wondering.
balance.
Okay, so that's a good thing to say. But talk to us about how you've navigated that.
If you were balanced all the time amidst everything, you do nothing well. So you go through seasons. But truly, if I didn't start the day, we get up early at our house at 4:30. So, but we're just morning people. If you're a nighttime person, you're saying yuck. But we do, and I've got to exercise every day, and I have to have my quiet time. I mean, honestly, the day will fall apart. I want to hear. I really want to. I do. I say, okay, Lord, what are we doing today? What needs to get done? Tell me what to do. We have a plan. I've got a plan. But without that morning time, it would fall apart. And then you learn to just do what you're supposed to do for that day. And that's it. I mean, you don't have to do everything everybody tells you to do. And we say no a lot.
Well, thank you for saying yes to
we
us
really,
today. We appreciate that.
We say no a lot. But I mean, this week people were saying, why are you going there? We had our first major fundraiser Monday. It's a big deal. And we were all in a fog. But I knew I was supposed to be here. So I don't know. And I'm successful because I believe I was supposed to be here. So even if I'm horrible, it's okay. I've still been obedient and done what God told me to do. So I don't really worry about that outcome.
Awesome.
But there really isn't you can't balance everything every day. You know this. I mean, it's seasons.
Great answer. Another question from the audience. What are some things you plan for while you're structuring your organization to lead it to be long-lasting? So here's Lisa Rose, she's the founder, you're the entrepreneur, you've made this happen. What are you doing to put in place a team to keep this thing going?
For me, our one major thing we're doing is sustainability. So about money. I mean, it takes money and people. We were talking about this earlier, how many people it takes to take care of people. You guys know that. But it takes money. And giving money is a spiritual act. We had one church visit 3 times. And finally I said, Deborah, you talk to them. And they were taking a lot of our time, but they didn't want to give anything. And finally she said, giving money is a spiritual act. How can the women, if they're hungry and can't drive to work, how can they ever become self-supportive and meet Christ in the process? And so they got it. And now there's a giver. And so I work on endowment, and we're penetrating churches. So we have a plan, a great marketing plan we've got 189 churches on a big poster on the back of my door. And we have pastor lunches. And we have a marketing plan for churches. We have a marketing plan for corporations. We've got a marketing plan for women. We've got a marketing plan for the very, very wealthy women. And so we look at I love to look at this as not as, oh, we need and there's lack, but really there's abundance out there, and you just have to find it and ask God. He is our source, and we say, okay, Lord, where do you want us to go for childcare? Where do you want us to go for cars? What do you want us to do next? And then we do it. So we pray and we act.
Okay. So you're getting all these questions coming in. I want you to tell the chapel story and the truck story, if you will, when we get a chance. Okay. But this question from the audience says, are women on disability allowed to live there, women who aren't able to work?
You know, we haven't had that yet. They have to work.
Okay.
They have to work.
Okay.
So if they're on government, so we're not a housing program, because there are other places they can go. And even when you're not accepted in the program, and there are people who aren't because they just want a handout or they just want housing, we don't say, no, you're not accepted. I mean, they're given a place to go. So there's always, and now we found a bed for you at Salvation Army or whatever. What was the next part of that? I've lost my train of thought.
It was
disability.
The work. Yeah,
okay.
you're right,
yeah.
in the work part. Okay.
Yeah. And we've had one, and it was from our church, and she didn't want to work, and my friends were very mad, and called us mean, and we don't know what compassion is, and you're not doing what you said you were going to do. And so we just explained in love what real compassion is. This woman didn't want to work, and she was fully capable. She didn't want to work the program. And she was just not a fit for us. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, what came out later is our church, Benevolence, had rejected her. So had Safe Haven, and so had 2 other nonprofits in the area. And so we've all made up. But it was, it's a learning process for everybody on what charity and giving a hand up really means. Because it's not always, it doesn't always mean give money or sympathy or directives. It means teaching them. It's the fish story. Teach them to fish for yourself.
Another question asks, is it only women fleeing domestic violence that are eligible to come?
No, there are women who are or underemployed or have had a crisis like a divorce where he's left with everything and she needs some education and to get back on her feet. Mostly domestic violence, but we have others also.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we could end our time because we got about 5 minutes left. You don't have to tell the chapel story. You don't have to tell the bus story, or the truck story. But if there are a couple of stories that you might want to share about some of the women who are there, or something you've experienced, or if the chapel story, whatever.
I'll do chapel and the A&M story.
Right.
A month ago, we had a woman move in with 3 kids, and they were older, and she came with air mattresses and this and fabrics, because she thought she was moving into like a shelter with a 1 room, and she'd have to divide the room for her kids. Well, the apartments are really nice, and our new video will be ready in a month, and it'll show the apartments. But they're not opulent, but they are excellent. And so when you move in, we've got a God squad of over 100 women, and they're divided into teams. So before a family comes, they clean the apartment, they put the furniture in, which was all donated. Nice furniture from a neighbor who manufactures commercial furniture. And then they decorate it, and they use from the advisors from that interview committee what the people love. So this high school senior wanted to go to A&M. So in his room, they put A&M pillows, A&M jersey, and he just stood and wept. He was so proud of his mom for doing something for herself. And then the second thing, he went in that room and saw that someone did something for him and didn't want anything in return. So of course we take a picture, and one of our donors is an A&M trustee, and I sent it to Bob, and I said, look who's moving in today. And he has responded appropriately with, send me his grades. So we're all thinking, oh no, what are his grades? Well, he's National Honor Society, and so he's in the process of applying for A&M, and Bob can't get him in. He has to earn it himself, but he can sure open the door. But wouldn't that be neat if he got to go to A&M?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we may have some ACU
Absolutely.
people to show me who to call, who to send the picture to. We'll decorate for ACU. But Chapel Story was great because on the original plan, so you've got all these buildings, like we have 29 buildings. And you've got apartments, event center, general store, keeps boutique, and a warehouse. And we didn't have a chapel on the plan. I didn't realize it meant so much to Deborah, who's the executive director, and she just kept saying, please, can we add a chapel? And we said, no. We've been through city council. We have the plan. This is expensive. This is big. We can't be adding a building in the middle of a capital campaign. We can have church in the event center, whatever. So I didn't know this, but on one Sunday, she gave it to God. She said, Lord, you know I want a chapel, and I'm not going to ask again. I didn't know that. That Thursday, I was in Dallas talking about the Gatehouse, and a woman called, and she said, I've been thinking about this for a year. I don't know what I'm supposed to do for the Gatehouse, but I know what it is now. I'm going to build a chapel. Is that the coolest thing? And I called Deborah. I couldn't wait till I got back. And I said, you won't believe this. This woman is going to build a chapel. She's donating the whole bit. And Deborah said, you won't believe this. I gave it to God for the last time on Sunday. And we've got a chapel. And people are more excited about the chapel than anything else. It's darling. It's darling. It's the Hill Country Chapel. Seats 48 people. No AV. It is, or audio visual. It's not anything like that. It's a place for the women to meet with God. But that's what he's done the whole way. And he does it just in time. He sees the need that's coming up. And then if we just ask him, no, he's our source. Where do you want us to turn? He'll provide it at the right time. And he's going to do it with childcare too.
That's fascinating. I want to say to the audience, I told you this morning, but the reason, when I heard Lisa's story, and of course we had Matt on campus as our last distinguished speaker, I've just always wanted to say to students at Abilene Christian, each one of us has a platform that God's given us. You don't have to be somebody. You are somebody. And all of us have a platform. But I think so often we don't consider what God might do with that platform in our own jobs, just daily in the workforce. And so I'm thankful that you shared this story from a marketing undergraduate major, which I really like that part from my colleagues, that you're an undergraduate marketing major, to working in industry, to church ministry, and really in the best years of your life, God's just done this incredible thing. So thanks for your witness and your example, and for coming in a busy week to be with us today.
Yeah.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Let's say
He's
thank you.
awesome.